If you grew up playing video games in the early 2000s and saw the purple LucasArts logo pop up on screen, you knew you were in for a treat. Although we didn't know it at the time, we were living through a golden age of gaming. An age where game developers and publishers were more willing to take risks to bring innovative new titles to market. There's one series from this era that, for many fans, stands above the rest, and that's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Featuring excellent writing, strong gameplay mechanics, and an entirely new Star Wars setting to explore, there was a lot to like. But what likely triggers the most nostalgia in fans are the original soundtracks for these games. 2003's KOTOR 1 was the first Star Wars video game to feature an entirely original soundtrack, seeking a complete departure from the compositional vocabulary of John Williams. Composed by Jeremy Soule, one of the hallmarks of the soundtrack is its bombastic fantasy adventure feeling. The music is as unambiguous as the two sides of the game's central conflict. The music related to the good guys frequently uses upper strings, woodwinds, and harp. While music related to the bad guys draws heavily from low strings, male choir, and brass fanfare. Jeremy's tracks in the early 2000s had a distinct sound. Some players often comment that KOTOR 1 sounds more ambient than KOTOR 2, and they'd be right. While the second game recorded a real orchestra, the first utilized MIDI-programmed orchestral samples. In fact, Jeremy noted that while composing the music for KOTOR, he wasn't able to write for full orchestra because he only had an 8 megabit per second MIDI system. As a result of this, he had to use compositional tricks to make people think they were hearing a full orchestra, and the byproduct of these techniques was a more ambient soundscape. Consider one of KOTOR's battle sequence themes. Oh, sorry, wrong one. That was one of Soule's tracks from Star Wars Bounty Hunter, a game released a year before KOTOR. Here's the actual KOTOR battle sequence theme. Another wrong song. That's a battle theme from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, a game Jeremy also scored a year before KOTOR was released. Okay, all jokes aside, here's the actual Starforge battle music. It's very clear from this example that Soule has his own sound, which he ported over to KOTOR, but sometimes the opposite occurs. Take Bastille's theme for example. Except that was actually Jeremy's composition, Distant Horizons, from Skyrim. Here's the real one. KOTOR 2 was a fundamentally different game from KOTOR 1. While the themes and conflicts of the first game were black and white, the second game was much more gray. The bombastic fantasy adventure vibe was replaced with a sort of brooding subversion. The Jedi are nearly extinct, the Republic is on the brink of collapse, and your enemies lurk in the shadows. One of the things that makes the KOTOR 2 soundtrack so beloved by fans is how well composer Mark Griskey managed to capture these gray feelings within his music. Consider the opening menu music. We have a lone English horn, representing the lone exile, playing a solemn line using the C harmonic minor scale. The harmonic minor scale is often described as having an exotic sound, very appropriate as our protagonist is an exotic individual, being the only Jedi to return from the Mandalorian Wars to face judgment from the Jedi Council. If you could use only one word to describe the soundtrack, it would probably be tense. Grisky uses multiple techniques to achieve this. One of them is the choice of instrumentation. For example, the Ghost ship utilizes a rarely heard solo contrabassoon, which does a great job foreshadowing the dangers that the player will face later aboard the Harbinger. This is actually a super cool instrument in real life. Another technique frequently employed is the use of pedal tones, long, sustained notes, usually in the bass register, that are held while other harmonies move in the upper registers. Inverse pedal tones, when the sustained note is in the upper register, is also used extensively. Even though Grisky crafted an amazing original score, we can still find many sounds inspired by John Williams. For example, his frequent yet tasteful use of muted trumpets, often playing chromatically planing chords, is reminiscent of Williams' scores. Grisky's B4D4 track reminds us of Williams' score from The Phantom Menace when Jar Jar is messing around in Watto's shop. The upper woodwinds on Tomb Interior are once again reminiscent of Williams' Tatooine score. Except, that was actually Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, of which provided immense inspiration to John Williams' Star Wars score. Two years ago, during the PlayStation Showcase, Sony announced the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake. It remains to be seen how the remake will ultimately look and sound. Mark Grisky noted in a Reddit post shortly after the reveal that no one had reached out to him to compose for it, though he would love the opportunity. Let me know in the comments if I missed any of your favorite tracks from the KOTOR games. Thanks for watching.
We face the greatest Sith in generations. They must be stopped.